All right. Yeah. So it has been a good time to have interacted with you guys for I think 2 years in terms of GIS and usability between GATSBY and Esri. And I'll be presenting towards on a topic titled towards resolving the challenges of site species mismatch for maximum productivity. And this is a case of a site suitability matching tool. Basically, site suitability matching tool is a tool we use in the forestry sector from our side to decide where to plant what species. But before I get into that, maybe just to give you the contents of my presentation, is I'll take you through a bit of introduction to GATSBY Africa, then an overview of our program, which is a Kenya Commercial Forestry Program, and then a value proposition on why we set up tree SSMT, and why is it important for the tree growers, and what are the opportunities which have come along, what will be coming along in regards to site suitability matching tool. To start off, I'll mention GATSBY is a charitable organization. It's an organization that was created by one Lord David Sainsbury, who is from UK, and the mission of GATSBY and his mission by extension is basically to create jobs and raise income and try and reduce poverty in a system called market systems approach, which I'll show you in the course. And so what he has done in that line is to try and run a number of programs in East Africa. Here we're talking about Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, and in some section of Uganda, in different activities, mainly forestry, cotton, textile, and so forth. And of course, ultimately, what he wants is to try and empower different stakeholders so that they can move towards reducing poverty within the region and creating employment in the different sectors. So it's someone who's trying to fund programs which are long-term. And for those who understand, forestry is one of those things which are long-term. It's not like you plant your tree today and you harvest tomorrow. These are on a minimum 10 years. And so in Kenya now, and within the program we are in fact, is we have a program called Kenya Commercial Forestry Program in partnership with different programs in the country, and having an MOU with the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources. And this was set up in 2017, and the aim, of course, was to try and support commercial forestry and timber processing. And this cuts really across the value chain, all the way from what we call seedlings, land, value addition, to harvesting and knowledge. And in all of those sectors, there's always something which can be done to improve the sector and perform better, because there are some other countries which are doing much, much better than we are, and we need to get to where they are. And there are a number of things which have happened over the years, and there have been a wood deficit, which is projected to be around 6.3 million by 2045, and this needs to be bridged. There's also issues of price increase in timber, mainly because of the logging ban, and of course the only way to bridge this gap is to try and have other sources of timber, mainly through what we call farm forestry, and that is what the program is trying to improve. And in essence, then the program now tries to play what we call anything along the value chain, basically. And the program has identified a number of elements which needs to be activated so that we can have what we call a competitive value chain. Here we are looking at issues of site suitability matching, and this is the essence exactly of this presentation. We are looking at quality germplasm, plant material, silviculture, harvesting and knowledge, and value addition. If you're able then to improve all these things and hopefully then have an enabling policy, legislation, and regulation, then we'll have what we call a competitive forestry system in the country. And we'll have an example of what's happening in Uganda, our neighbors here in Uganda, what they did a couple of years ago, and and other countries within the region and the world at large. So in that sense, then when we came in as a program in 2017, we traversed different parts of the country just to have a look at what's happening within the forestry sector. And we realized there's really what you call a suboptimal decision in terms of species being grown on the ground. And it led to what we call really poor survival growth and poor trees. And even in the poor sites, there was really even in the poor sites, the trees which were there were the trees which were not supposed to be there in the first place. And in the high potential sites, the trees which are there basically were being managed poorly. And so in either scenarios, whether the site is good or the site is bad, there's always an issue which needs to be handled. And so seeing this one, we thought, what is the best approach? And we decided now to develop come up with a system which can be able to handle and give information to people and different players in forestry on exactly what to plant where, and assist in determining, in improving forestry, so that we can have a scenario as you are seeing in the photos below, where even in the poor sites, there's a bit of, there's some potential being met, and at the good sites, then the potential is at its maximum in terms of productivity. And this then we think will improve, ultimately increase jobs and income. And if you trickle it down, of course, it means that the forest sector, what happens within site suitability matching tool will lead to improved sites in terms of what is being managed on the ground, improve productivity eventually, and forest sector growth. And when the forest sector growth, it means, of course, that more people will be involved, and there will be jobs and income, and we will not have instances where we are closing pen paper, we are closing any other industry for that matter. So the big picture here, we are looking at the impact at the end of the value chain. What is it that we are aiming for? And so this is one of the aspects of the whole thing. So SSMT, or what in site suitability matching tool itself, then would say came into being from the year 2017, basically, because once we went around the country and realizing that there was this mismatch and suboptimal productivity, then we needed to find a solution, and the solution was in form of a guide, basically, to tree growers on where to plant what. And we then engaged people who are seasoned in terms of GIS and forestry, and collected information required to develop the tool. And here, when I talk about the information required, I'm talking about information on soil is one of the factors which we look at, information on what we call AZ, basically agroecological zones. And these, of course, can be obtained from a world climate data set, and we're working on those and trying to match them to the trees, different trees. And of course, our target here was commercial trees. So we did match them to a number of commercial trees, and then established, went through to the ground to see what the tool is saying is really what's happening on the ground, and being able to correct and rectify some of those areas. And of course, then we then develop what we think is an industry tool which can be used and played by different people and players in the forestry line. So basically, then the structure of the tool is that it's composed of three main parts. What we call temperature, information on the temperature, which is a key and important factor, information on moisture, and information on soil. And temperature and moisture, of course, are key ingredients in terms of from climatic information, which you derive from mainly AZ, agroecological zones, and you're able to determine an increase of 2 degrees, for example. What does it mean for this tree, and what does it mean for another tree? And what does the different MZ mean for different regions? And there are, of course, almost 450, I think 450 soil types in the country. And so there is, of course, an interpretation of the different soil types into what we call soil suitability classes to be able to determine what grows, what soil fits what plant, what trees, for example. And you are able to pick up what are the limiting factors of different soil types, and being able to correct that and give it into a soil class and soil suitability. So in it, generally, then you would then develop what would appear as an attribute table of linking between a species and the climatic and soil requirements, so that if the species fits those criteria, then you are able to determine its suitability and what is the range of suitability, as I'll show you in a number of slides ahead. Then, of course, all that information was then mapped and developed into different maps of different species. And here we are looking at an example of this map. Here is a map of Eucalyptus grandis, or commonly known as flooded gum, although most people call it blue gum. And we were able to see some sections of the country and be able to determine what would be the suitability and what would be the range. And here, of course, you will see there's a bit of transparency, but the green areas will be the very suitable areas. Light green will be moderately suitable, and the marginally suitable will be the orange, and the black areas would be the areas which you think are not suitable for these species. The suitability criteria, of course, gives you the productivity. So if you see like a site is very suitable, it means you will probably get around 75% productivity from that particular area. So if an expectation of in forestry term, what we call MAI would be around 40 to 50, then you'll get, if you do 75 of it, then you're sure of what will be the output at the end of the rotation, which is basically the planting period. Again, once we develop the maps within from the different platform, whether it's online or in the or from any ArcGIS suite which is available, then you are able to load the PDF version of the map into Avenza, and we have had different people going to the field and being able to use it for seeing exactly the places they're in against the suitability of that particular areas, and providing providing and assisting people to decide if this is the species of choice, or they need to look at other species and so forth. So we have done this for close to 60 tree species in Kenya, but mainly focused on commercial species. Again, we then also have been able to provide the web application for our partners who then can get into our web and be able to see exactly what they have, and in terms of the different areas and the different suitabilities of those areas. And of course, you can be able to look at that within the web if we are to go that direction. Again, with the dashboard as well, we are then able to also to provide this information to the different players and so forth. And I would want to mention, of course, and looking at the attribute information, that for different users, depending on the level of users who are engaging with us, or who are mainly getting our service, then they can decide on how they will want to look at it. For example, if someone just wants to know the suitability and doesn't want to know the background information, then the PDF map, which is basically static, will do for him. And whether it's printed or it's in the mobile application, then that's good enough for him. But for guys who want to know exactly why the application is saying the way it's saying, and if it's different from what you're expecting, then you can go back and go to the background information and query. And of course, you can have that capability on looking on that in the dashboard itself, and being able to pick any issue you want to pick. and getting back to us, and we can be able to confirm if there's any changes we need to do. One of the other things we also try and make sure we do is try and have people do a microsite assessment, basically to determine if the size they are in is rated as it is in terms of soil suitability on the graph, because the background information is mainly on, some of them are on soil. And we have categorized soil into 5 classes for that matter, S1 to NS in that suitability range, very suitable for S1, and NS being the not suitable. And of course, the background information, you get to know what is the soil type. And if you are a soil person, then you can go further and determine why do we say, for example, molic anti-soil is an S2 for that matter. We have also gone further and try and see by coming up with the climate change scenarios on the SSMT tool, and see what will happen in, for example, 2050. And we did engage and work with some consultants to see to model climate change scenarios, and see how the particular species shifts in terms of coverage of a particular area. And of course, interestingly, we realized that there will be a shift in what we call a worst case scenario, which is a RCP 85 or a not worst case scenario, RCP 45. And for example, in RCP 45, it means like if there are mitigation measures put in place, then we will be in a better place than it would have been if those mitigation measures are not put in place. So in that case, then what is the impact of these species in terms of the coverage and so forth? So we are able to see that and be able to inform investors who wants to invest in a long-term project like forestry, and be able to make a wise decision on that particular end. One of the other things I want to mention as I come to the end of this presentation is one of the projects we did in terms of also looking at what is the coverage of woodlots in different localities. And here we are talking about we were looking at eucalyptus basically, and we just did a pilot project in Bungoma and Nyandarua area, just to see how much resources are available from different from farm and from farm level, not a plantation setup like 10,000 or so. These are people with 1 acre piece of land and so forth. And we were just targeting eucalyptus genus, and be able to determine within a particular locality area of interest how much resources can we be able to get. And we engage, of course, a bit of remote sensing expert to come up with the data set. But most importantly is that we were also able to get in touch with the planet who provided like a constellation of imageries, which we can use as base images as we try and monitor either on a monthly basis or in 2 months or 3 months or weekly, if you want, what is the changes within this particular area in terms of species, in terms of woodlots, and what are the sizes. So this one for us was important because we needed to know if an investor is interested in setting up something like a sawmill in, let's say, in Nakuru, how much raw material will you be able to get from that particular area, and what are the changes from time to time. So this was one of the other project which I wanted to highlight, and really an important area for us to be able to combine issues of GIS and remote sensing in one particular area. So so that's the end of my presentation, and thanks. In case there's any question, I can hear from you.